You know, when you think about a honeybee, you probably just picture it buzzing around flowers. But have you ever thought about its career path? It turns out, from the moment she's born, a worker bee has this incredibly packed resume, a whole series of jobs she is biologically destined to do.
So, what's actually on that list of qualifications? Well, it's way more than just flying around. It's this highly structured, pre-programmed progression of roles, and every single one is absolutely critical for the survival of the colony. It's so organized, in fact, that some scientists see the entire hive as a single living organism.
Okay, so first, let's meet our job applicant. The worker bee is always a sterile female. Her entire life is dedicated to work, doing every single task needed to keep the hive running. The one thing she doesn't do? Lay eggs. That's the queen's job, and the queen's job alone.
A bee's career actually starts indoors. For the first 3 weeks of her life, she's what we call a house bee, and she will not see the sun. Not once. Her entire world is the dark, bustling, and super organized interior of the hive.
And boy, is it a packed schedule. Her job literally changes every few days as her body develops new abilities. She kicks things off on the cleaning crew, gets promoted to feeding older larvae, then becomes a nanny to the royalty, then she shifts into construction and even gets guard duty training, all before she's even 3 weeks old. It's a career ladder that moves at lightning speed.
So her very first assignment, on day 1 of her adult life, is cleaning. She meticulously scours out the hexagonal wax cells where new bees are going to be raised. She has to make sure everything is perfectly sterile and ready for the queen to lay fresh eggs. In a colony this crowded, hygiene is everything.
After just a few days, bam, promotion. She's in the nursery. At first, she's feeding the older larva a kind of protein bar made of honey and pollen called bee bread. But then, something amazing happens. Special glands in her head fully develop, and she unlocks a new superpower, producing royal jelly. This stuff is a protein-rich superfood, and it's fed to the youngest larva. It's also the only thing a queen will eat for her entire life.
Next up, a career in construction and engineering. Around day 12, it's like a biological switch just flips on. 4 pairs of wax glands on her abdomen activate, and she starts secreting these tiny, tiny flakes of wax. She then chews the wax, making it pliable, and expertly molds it to build brand new honeycomb or repair any damage to the hive's incredible architecture.
Now, alongside this age-based career path, other house bees take on these really specialized roles that are all about regulating the hive's internal environment. Think of them as maintaining a stable and healthy home for the whole colony. So what's with this number? Well, this is the absolutely critical temperature range, 33 to 36 degrees Celsius, that the bees have to maintain inside the nursery. If it gets too hot or too cold, the developing young will die. So how on earth do they manage a thermostat so precisely?
The answer is fanning. And bees actually have 2 totally different kinds of fanning. To cool the hive, they beat their wings like little air conditioners, circulating the air. But they also have another technique. They raise their abdomens, expose a special scent gland called the Nasonov gland, and fan a pheromone into the air. This chemical signal acts as a homing beacon, literally guiding their lost sisters back to the hive.
And these specializations just keep coming. Some bees become undertakers, whose only job is to remove any dead bees to prevent disease. Others are food processors, taking nectar from the foragers and starting the process of turning it into honey. They even share it mouth to mouth in a process called trophallaxis. And on really hot days, you might see them bearding, just hanging out on the front of the hive in a giant clump to reduce the body heat inside.
Okay, now this might be the most fascinating job of all, social policing. Every once in a while, a worker's ovaries might develop and she'll lay an unfertilized egg. But in the hive's strict social order, this is a big no-no, because it would only produce a male drone, not another female worker. So what happens? Well, there are specialist police bees that can actually smell the difference between a worker's egg and the queen's. They find the illegal egg, and they eat it. Just like that. All to ensure that only the queen's lineage continues.
After 3 intense weeks of indoor labor, the worker bee's life enters its final and by far most dangerous chapter. She finally graduates from a house bee to a field bee, and she gets to venture into the great sunlit outdoors for the very first time in her life.
But she doesn't just fly out blindly. Oh no, she prepares. For a few days, she takes these short little orientation flights, just circling the hive, memorizing landmarks, and creating a mental map so she can always find her way back home. It's basically flight school for bees.
Now it's time to put that early training into practice. Her first outdoor job is one of the toughest, guard duty. She stands right at the hive entrance, inspecting every single bee that tries to come in, sniffing them to make sure they're part of the colony. And if an intruder shows up, like a wasp or a bee from another hive, she will fight to the death to defend her home. And at last, she becomes a forager, the job we all picture. For the rest of her short life, she will fly for miles every day to collect 4 essential resources. She'll get sugary nectar for energy, protein-rich pollen to feed the young, water for cooling the hive, and this sticky plant resin called propolis, which the bees use like an antibacterial caulk to seal up any cracks.
So after a lifetime of tireless work across, a dozen different jobs, what does it all add up to? Well, each and every role, triggered by a change in her own body, points to this really cool concept that scientists call the superorganism.
And this quote just captures the core truth of her entire existence. Her individual life has one purpose, and one purpose only: to serve the collective. She isn't really an individual in the way you and I think of it. She's more like a functional unit of the whole.
And that's not just a saying. A forager bee will literally fly until her wings become frayed and tattered, until she can no longer carry a load or even stay airborne. She works herself to death, a final, ultimate sacrifice for the survival of her family, her colony, which, in a way, is her true self.